Double check. I'm going to assume that's a yes. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. So, jazakumullah khair, Hannah and Sheikh Yusuf, you guys did a phenomenal job, and there isn't really much more for me to say. Subhanallah. They say, leave the best for last. In this case, it's the situation where everybody already got everything that they needed to get. And so now this is the boring stuff. When I was first told the topic of productivity, my first reaction, my gut reaction was, productivity. It is not a fun topic right now. And I think we're going to get into why that's the case. But I think one of the key elements about it is that right now a lot of people are going through a hard time, and so the last thing people are thinking of is, okay, yes, it's time for me to work. But that's why I really want to try to use this conversation right now, inshallah, to kind of reframe essentially productivity and the way that we think about it. So the first thing that I want to say is the way that we look at the world, the way that we look at ourselves. This makes a big difference about our internal state and eventually then what comes out of it. And so I want to kind of just use that phrase, that idea of your personal narrative, the way that you think about yourself, and just use that to actually just bring that directly to the issue right now of, the coronavirus, COVID-19 and whatnot. This is something that objectively has a start and it has a finish, right? This virus, at some point it began, at some point it's going to, at some point it began, and at some point it's going to come to an end. But everybody has their own story about the coronavirus. Everybody has the moment that they first heard about it, the moment that they first took it seriously, the moment that kind of it really hit them. And maybe for some of us, that hasn't even happened yet. But so it's an interesting way to show that one objective thing that happens in the world can have many different stories associated. And even right now, when you take into consideration the fact that there are so many people who have either been laid off or furloughed, or for whatever reason, they can't continue in their school, they can't continue in their job, where they have now new difficulties added to their life. And at the same time, there are people who this is essentially maybe a vacation. Maybe for some people, they're just, it's time off of school. They're just hanging out at home. They're just, watching movies and whatever. Now, even with that being said, though, there is still obviously some, negative emotions for a lot of people, but the degree is very different, right? For a lot of people, this just really isn't the life-shattering thing that it is for other people. So thinking about it first from that perspective, remembering the fact that everybody has a different story, and then reassessing, tayyib, how is it that we can manage this story then? Because the Quran is one book, right? The Prophet ﷺ seerah, his story, that is one story. And so how could we take these lessons and say these lessons are supposed to apply for everybody, right? And I want to think about a question right now. When we think about productivity, when we think about what our goals are supposed to be or what they are, it's usually associated with, or at least for most people, what career you're going into, what education you're trying to pursue. Being productive is tied to what it is that you're trying to basically contribute to this world, right? That's your commitment. Even people, for example, who they don't really care about school, at the end of the day, they do view it that it's an obligation, for example, for themselves to go to school, because that's what they're trying to do to eventually, put food on the table. So this is viewed as an obligation, whereas faith, deen, religiosity, whatever you want to call it, it's considered secondary, it's considered optional. It's considered something that is, I'll take care of it once everything else is in place. Now, I want to just share a hadith that was narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha. She said that no calamity, she said that the Prophet ﷺ said no calamity befalls a Muslim, but that Allah expiates some of their sins because of it. Even though it were a prick, he receives from a thorn. So essentially, every single thing that you go through, no matter what it is, any sort of difficulty, it's going to be, inshallah, a means of forgiveness. And so what we know now objectively is, even if you don't care about deen, even if you don't care about religion, this difficulty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put upon you, this is now a means of forgiveness for you. Everybody got that right now, inshallah ta'ala. Every believer, this is what they've been called to. They've been called now to forgiveness, because this is a difficulty in many different ways. Even if you didn't lose your job, you might be at home, really bored. You might be at home really, lonely or depressed or tired, missing your family, missing your loved ones, maybe somebody that is sick, maybe you want to go out. There is now constraints on you that weren't there before. Those constraints by their nature is now a means, inshallah, for earning forgiveness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already called you to him. That's the first part. So framing this, right, it's not your choice right now about, well, do I want to be productive or not? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already called you there. And so there's already now a step towards productivity in your faith that has been made. Something that you might have considered secondary or optional, it has now already been put upon you. Alhamdulillah. Of course, we can go into the long conversation about is this, a punishment? Is this not? And I think Sheikh Yusuf covered that extremely beautifully, right? And so I want to go now to the next point, though, because we already established that these constraints, they're increasing for a lot of people negative emotions. We want to tie that in now directly to how negative emotions work in relation to productivity. Straight up, negative emotions for a lot of people, they will end up, if you're not able to reframe them and manage them correctly, inhibiting your ability to be productive. There's been a lot of studies about things like procrastination, and I'm not going to go into presenting something fully right now, but when it comes to procrastination, one of the main primary root causes, it's not just somebody who says, oh, I just kind of lose track of time. It's actually just negative emotions. So we actually sometimes put off doing things because we know that engaging in that task is going to increase me in negative emotions. So for example, if I have to work on an essay and I know that the moment I open that essay, I'm going to be lost. I'm going to be confused because I got to research, I got to put my effort in, I got to try hard. All of these things are generally negative emotions that I'm going to try to run away from. And so I'm just going to put it off and put it off and put it off. So our inability to cope with negative emotions is going to result in procrastination. And so now if we say that there's already an increase in negative emotion for so many of us, then it's no wonder when somebody tells you, hey, be productive, you don't want to do it. But this is where I want to reconsider things. Where is the source of positive emotion? If we're saying that there's a lot of negative emotion, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already given us inbuilt in who we are a source for positive emotion. In one of the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, beware, there is a piece of flesh in the body. If it becomes good, the whole body becomes good. But if it gets spoiled, the whole body gets spoiled, and that is the heart. This hadith really encompasses something important. And there's many hadith, of course, that talk about the heart and talk about positivity and whatnot. But really, I want to bring it into exactly what we're talking about here. The heart, when it is reformed, the heart, when it's purified, the heart, when we are actively making an effort to keep it clean, it ends up resulting in more positivity and more khair and more goodness in every single thing that we do, period. That your ability to cope with negative emotions, your ability to cope with external difficulties, your ability even to just have an increased drive towards khair, this comes from the healthy heart. The same heart, or the difference in heart could be the difference between two people looking at the same thing, one person feeling debilitated by it and the other feeling motivated by it. And again, I want to mention this cautiously, right? We are not saying this to say that if you feel down or like you're in a hard place or depressed, that this means that your heart isn't good. Absolutely not. But what we're saying is, if we are trying to improve our ability to cope with challenges and negativity and all of these things, if we're trying to improve that, then one of the primary sources that we should be working on is the heart, inshallah ta'ala. So I'm saying this because I didn't go into the technical aspect yet of productivity, but because it's important to frame first. If we want to be productive in anything in our life, start with productivity towards the heart. And quick hadith, this is a hadith Qudsi where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my servant draws not near to me with anything more beloved but my religion. Let me say that again. My servant draws not near to me with anything more loved by me than the religious duties I have enjoined upon him. And my servant continues to draw near to me with the supererogatory works, so that I shall love him. All of that is simply to say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that the way that we come near to him and more love to him, first and foremost, the thing that he loves the most is the fara'id, the obligations. So that means the simple things that we don't consider to be a big deal, the things that don't necessarily give us that big spiritual boost, right? When we go to Taraweeh, we feel that high because we're like, yo, I just did something that was, voluntary and extra, and I put so much effort. it gives you that big boost of kind of, a spiritual boost. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us right here that we start and we really establish that love to Him, the things that nothing is more love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's those obligations. The obligations. So what are the obligations that we have? Of course, it's the first and most important ones are the salah. These are the deeds that we're going to be showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I don't want to hear any conversation about productivity that doesn't begin with reassessing our relationship with salah. That's the foundation. Everything else, to me, ends up, if you're neglecting the salah, everything else is highly likely that it is rooted in the ego, it's rooted in the nafs. And that's why you might have people who sit in these, $1,000 productivity courses and listening to all these things, and it's like they're so productive, making all of this money, but it's like, is that really actually productive? How are we actually defining what productivity is? Start with the baseline of being productive towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart and your relationship with Him. Start with the obligations. Then you increase in the sunnah. And the reality is, it's those sunnah, the extra things that you do, that's what ends up, inshallah ta'ala, strengthening your relationship with the obligations. Think about it simply. If you pray all of your sunnah prayers, what's going to happen if you have a low point or a bad day? You might drop sunnah prayers, but it's going to be a bigger leap to go to the point of dropping the actual obligation. Because even when you take it a little bit easy, you have these layers of defense, right? So another aspect of this, of course, is the wudu, right? Remembering wudu as an actual obligation for us. We have to mandatorily clean ourselves before we go to pray. Do we treat wudu as this extra thing that just goes into the salah, or do we actually take our time, focus on our wudu, take a few moments, do the dua after the wudu, etc., etc. And then to now, maybe somebody is listening to this and they're saying, well, my obligations are fantastic. Check out this hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said about Abdullah ibn Umar, one of the greatest of companions. He said, Abdullah is a good man. I wish he offered the night prayer, tahajjud. This was the Prophet ﷺ's way of advising and motivating him towards increasing in a specific ibadah. And there's just something beautiful about that. There's something beautiful about the Prophet ﷺ saying, I wish that somebody who's already amazing would do something that's just a little bit better, to make them even better. This is, subhanAllah, like this is about Abdullah ibn Umar, right? That even somebody of that high status is being encouraged in a positive way by Rasulullah ﷺ, just if you do this, you'd be even better. You're already good, but this would be even better. And so actually taking into consideration right now, our ability, especially if we are in, let's say, an easier, more privileged position than other people, is taking this opportunity where we have different, a kind of rebuilding of our schedules and whatnot. Is there a way for me to fit in an extra act of ibadah, an extra page of Quran, an extra rak'ah, an extra sunnah? Is there a way for me to do this right now? There's a window for khair right now that for many people didn't exist. Going back to the idea now of improving the heart, we talked about salah. Right now, many of us are at home with our families. Invest in your family. Your siblings, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you siblings, your siblings are really just temporary roommates. You're with them right now for a few years of your life, and in the future, you're going to be apart. And if you've never had time away from your family, then you might not appreciate what that actually means. Maybe you say you want the relief, but in the future, you realize how much of your norm has been shaped by the people that are around you. Furthermore, of course, I want to siblings. Now I want to go to the higher status. The parents, our parents, so often they want us to do things, or they want to, something from us, and we say, hey, we have school, we have work, we have whatever. Now, if we have more time, this is the opportunity. How do you improve your relationship with your parents? Maybe you don't talk to each other. Maybe you have a parent who isn't very emotionally expressive. Take this as an action item. Try to spend some time where you just sit with your family, just sit with your parents and do nothing. Don't bring your phone, don't bring whatever, and just sit. Just be like, yo, what's up? What'd you guys do today? What'd you guys watch today? Maybe you offer them something. Maybe you saw a funny video or something interesting. Maybe it's something that you would normally send or share with your friends. This is the opportunity now for you to share it with somebody else, for you to be like, hey, to my parents, I want to improve. I want to show you what I like. You might think that they won't be interested in it, but you're taking steps now, inshallah, to improve in that relationship. Silat al-Rahim. Ask your parents now. Maybe you're at home now and at a time where you see your parents calling their own parents, that your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, whoever it is. Silat al-Rahim. This is from one of the responsibilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put upon us, to connect with our relatives. Maybe you don't speak that language very well if they speak a different language. Maybe you haven't talked in a long time. Honestly, a conversation with them is simple. It's just basic small talk. How are you guys? I'm doing well, alhamdulillah. Oh yeah, we miss you too. What are you guys up to? How's this person? How's this person? All right, is there anything I could do? Jazakumullah khair, guys. It was nice to see you. Assalamu alaikum. Just small things like that. What you're doing is you're planting seeds of love in these relationships. You're showing a level of care, even if you don't know necessarily yet how to nurture that relationship further. Although one of the ways that we mention is, for example, sharing things that you've seen, sharing things that are interesting to you, asking people what they're doing, what they're interested in, what their day has been like, what did they eat, what did they watch, etc., etc. So I just want to touch on those aspects of obligations in terms of the ibadah, in terms of salah, in terms of our relationships with our families, because I swear, if we set these as actual practical goals, everything else is going to come into play in an easier way. So just to wrap it up, because I know we're running low on time, we have to do the Q&A, but nobody has messaged me, told me to get off yet. So I'm just going to mention quickly things that you could do now. Once we've established that baseline, we reframed the challenge, we worked on our heart. Now we're trying to say, we set our spiritual goals. Now, what about the other goals that we have in our education, in our career, in our fitness? There's obviously a lot of different goals that we can have for ourselves right now with this added extra time. This is the opportunity, if you have that extra time, inshallah, to really be working on yourself. What I would say is, in terms of, for example, managing your time, one of the best things that you could do for yourself is get a daily planner. You can do it electronically. You could download online, for example, an agenda or a planner. You can use apps. But the important thing is actually planning your day. And you can plan your days ahead of time. The general thing that I like to do is planning my rough sketch basically for a day. So I say I'm going to wake up at, let's say I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. I'm going to have breakfast. I'm going to have I'm going to do my adhkar. I'm going to read my Quran, whatever, and I'm going to set, for example, 2 hours, 3 hours. Here's 3 hours for this section. Here's 2 hours for this task. Then, as you go along throughout your day, reassessing that schedule. If you changed something, if something new got in there, basically just add it in. So you can basically put kind of like 2 columns where you're going through your day hour by hour and putting your rough sketch and then what actually ended up happening, kind of your revision. It's a way for you to become more mindful of where your time is going, being aware, just seeing these things in front of you, seeing I spent 3 hours today on my phone. And inshallah, it's we're spending less than that, but I'm very aware that a lot of us, our screen on time has gone way more than that for a lot of reasons. But if you said, hey, I spent 4 hours today on the phone with somebody, or I spent whatever, seeing that should make you face a reality that otherwise you might have ignored because you just had it in the back burner, you didn't acknowledge it. But basically going back and reassessing where our time is going helps us plan moving forward. If you set a goal and you weren't able to reach it, actually writing down, get a book for yourself, be like, here's my goal, I want to read 3 pages of Quran every single day for this week. Maybe you set a goal for just this week specifically. If you weren't able to do it on a certain day, explain why. Was it something that was in your control? Was it something that wasn't in your control? And if you don't like writing these things out, you can literally just open a voice recording app on your phone, your computer, whatever, and do a review basically of your week. Do a review of the goals that you set and why you weren't able to reach them. Just having this dialogue changes your ability to lie to yourself and to deceive yourself and to say, oh yeah, well, I wanted to, but things happened. No. Spell it out. What exactly happened? What is it that got in your way? Because when we set our goals, one of the most important things, everybody has heard of, I think, of SMART goals. You can look that up, SMART, SMART goals. It's how to set, basically goals in a productive way. But one of the important things about that is that the goals actually have to be measurable. You have to say, listen, you don't want to just say, hey, I want to read more Quran. No, tell yourself, I want to read 2 pages of Quran every single day, 1 page of Quran every single day. I want to do my adhkar, my morning and evening remembrances. I want to try to do them 3 times a week. Okay, maybe you don't do them at all. Maybe you set that stage. What ends up happening now is your ability to then set that goal, review that goal after a week, for example, if you set that time period, or 2, it gives you the chance to then adjust in the future. Maybe you put 3, maybe it didn't work this week. Next week, set the goal to be 2. That doesn't work, just do 1. But the idea is setting a goal of something that you want to accomplish, holding yourself accountable, and then readjusting the goal as you move forward, inshallah ta'ala. One thing in terms of actually organizing your time is make note of things that can potentially delay what you want to do. If I have to work out for 1 hour, don't put your workout in your calendar to be 1 hour. No, account for some of the kind of the lagging the lagging behind that you might do afterwards or before. Give yourself an hour and a half to do a task that takes 1 hour. If laundry, for example, takes you I don't know, it takes you 30 minutes to fold your laundry. Tell yourself, I'm going to give 45 minutes. That way, you don't constantly feel like you are creating a schedule that is impossible for you to keep up with. A schedule is not meant to make you feel bad. It's meant to make you feel organized and structured. A schedule that is stressing you out is a schedule that you will not end up keeping up with. You want to set a schedule in a way that makes you feel accomplished. So, for example, maybe you put a few easy tasks in the morning, before your brain kind of really gets going, before you put the harder ones. And in general, something that I think is really important for us to do: have a daily, regular commitment with the Quran to the best of your ability, even if it's half a page, even if it's 2 lines, but to commit yourself to reading those words. Just those words alone are a source of cleansing for you. They're a source of strength and protection for you. Even if you're not able to memorize anything, just having that regular relationship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us through the Prophet ﷺ, this is the hadith, and I'm going to paraphrase it, and I'm going to kind of wrap up over here, that the best deeds that we do are those that are consistent, even if they are few. So even if you don't feel like this is a big deal, there's the barakah in the consistency. We pray every single day. One of the benefits of praying every single day is developing consistency, developing discipline. This is what allows us to then set goals and other things that we do in our life. You know better than me what goals you need to set. You know what your challenges are. But the important thing is to take the same principles that are used to improving the other things to, inshallah, improving these goals. So I can go on for a lot longer, but forgive me, this was already far longer than I intended. Barakallah.